Welcome to Progress in San Diego. Ordinary People Doing Extraordinary Things. I'm your host, Walter Davis. And as you know, our focus on this program concerns human rights, social justice, and the environment as our themes. The incarceration rate in the United States is really out of control. So many American citizens are incarcerated, yet we don't have rehabilitation in the prison system, and people are being returned to the streets with little hope of finding a job. Even people that have a clean record in this economy are having a tough time finding a job. But just imagine those people that have a conviction rate or a conviction record. And just some of the stats that I got from Wikipedia indicate that the United States of America has an incarceration rate of about 800 for every 100,000 people. And it's the #1 prison population in the world. We have more people incarcerated in this country than any other country. Russia, on the other hand, is less than us. They have roughly 600 people for every 100,000, while Canada has 120 for every 100,000, and China is about the same rate at 120. And these are supposed to be countries that are communist. The United States has about a quarter of all incarcerated people in the world. A quarter of that population is right here in the United States. And so I'm very proud to have an individual that's making a difference with that population, and that's Mr. Scott Silverman. And thank you very much, Scott, for coming on to the show.
Thanks, Walter. It's good to be here.
And Scott is with would Chief Executive Officer be the correct title for you?
Well, they call me president, but you know, nonprofit world titles only mean that you get more work with less pay.
Okay,
so
understood. And you with Second Chance.
Correct. Yep. And I'm actually the founder. That's the part, a proud founder. That's the part I'm most excited about, is the fact that I was able to take my volunteerism to a whole new level and create something 18 years ago that now is helping thousands of people in our community.
Great, great. And how long ago did you found a Second Chance?
1993 was our very first calendar year of being in business, and we're just coming up on our 19th year, finishing our 18th year in San Diego.
Outstanding. Well, that's a great record to be proud of, huh?
Oh, yeah, it's very exciting. You know, talking to your statistics, you know, they call the U.S. the carceration nation, and more specifically California. They say you come here on vacation, you leave on probation, and that's the way the world looks at us. And it's, you know, it's a scary place to be when you think about how tough the world is. That there's things that we can do, because criminal thinking is not a disease; it's reparable. And there's ways to help people. And we think we found one of the great avenues to do that. And, you know, we're trying to find ways to communicate to the community. This is a good platform to do that. So, again, I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about the work we do at Second Chance and what's really working.
Wonderful. We'll talk about that. Tell me about what is that?
Well, what we've designed at Second Chance that we think is really powerful is what we call a three-prong approach, or, you know, the three legs of the stool. And that is when an individual gets out of an institution. And I should point out that 80% of our clients have criminal history, but 20% do not. So, you know, there could be friends of yours or mine, someone who's just recently lost a job, someone who's getting back into the workforce, someone who's never really had a full-time job, or is actually, you know, underemployed and looking for more opportunity. But of the folks that we serve, what happens is that the first and highest risk period of time upon release is the first 24 to 48 hours. So we provide housing, we put them on the inside immediately, if you will, in a safe environment, and then we get them in the classroom immediately, and then our goal, after a 4-week training with a 2-year follow-up, our goal is to make sure they have all the wraparound services they need. So that three-prong approach, the 2-year follow-up, that's really what makes Second Chance very unique when you think about what's out there in the way the social service world, and those who provide the services, specifically for the returning offender, if you will.
So one of the big problems is people leaving prison and then going right back into the same environment they were in, the environment being drugs and other type of criminal activities. Am I correct?
Or you know, or an unsafe family environment. Right. For example, if an individual's done with that activity, but they've just finished a 5-year prison sentence, and they get what I call a degree in FU, which is Failure University, and they come out with this criminogenic thinking, and they don't have a job, they don't have a safety net, they don't have an income of any sort, they don't even have identification. You know, that's why in California right now our recidivism rate is upwards of 78%. So imagine you've got 170+ thousand inmates in 33 prisons, and 95% of them are going to get out of prison. and 80% of them are going to go back. Imagine any business with an 80% failure rate staying in business very long. So in our prison system, that's documented, that's their evidence, that's the science, that's their information. So it's not something you and I have to even look on Wikipedia and look hard to research. It's right there. They've studied it, so they know it's failing, yet we spend $11 billion a year in California, and we have an 80% failure rate. So we're trying to convince the governor, the new governor now, and the leadership, the corrections, to say, look, we'll take 1% of that, $11 billion, and we'll show you how we can put $1 billion back into the education budget of the state of California and reduce the deficit, if you will, almost that same amount over about a 10-year period. So we think, we know we have the science, we think it can be done, but we need some sort of a mechanism to get the state behind what we do, because we don't get state funding, which is very interesting, which means the private sector supports a big portion of our work.
So that's quite ridiculous when you think about the fact that we have extreme budget constraints right now, and $11 billion or more is being poured into the prison system.
Correct.
And then that is resulting in an almost 80% failure rate.
Correct. Well, what individuals learn on the inside is generally not transferable in a positive way on the outside. That's why the recidivism rate is so high, because an individual coming out of prison, you know, they've been gone for a few years, they've studied with a fellow named Bubba in their cell, and they've had to learn how to survive in prison. Those skills are good if they're tailored in the right direction. But the bottom line is the prison system isn't set up to prepare people to come back to the community, and the community doesn't have the resources to take people back without some sort of a plan. And right now, with the current alignment that's going on in the state of California, you know, the sheriff's department, probation, law enforcement, everyone's concerned, and everyone in the community should be as well. Sometimes people think, oh, the state's taking care of that. No, they're not. They're looking to save that $1.4 billion on state level, but that problems being transferred now to local communities. So that makes no sense at all, but up in Sacramento, somehow they've gotten that mechanism in place that they've convinced themselves by letting 33,000 men and women out of prison and letting them go back to the communities, they'll save $1.4 billion.
So we have less police on the street. Obviously, the funding for public safety has been cut back.
Correct.
We have more people in prison, more people coming out of prison, and people coming out unsupervised, and they don't have economic opportunities. So what choice do they have other than to get back into criminal activities?
Well, and they can start that business the first hour they're back. They can get off the Greyhound and go to work, if you will, in their old business. And what's interesting is, in this economy, well, like you said earlier, you can come out of a college with a 4-year degree or 5-year degree or junior college and an AA degree, and you're now competing in a very difficult environment. So imagine you have a 5-year working gap or a gap in your work. You don't even have anything other than a prison ID, and you don't have a permanent address in the community you've just come back to. If you get lucky and get a couple $100 in your pocket, but you spend a third of it to come home with transportation, you got $150, try to figure out a way to get from here to there. And I don't mean from this location to that location, but here to there, getting a place to live, finding food, access to a computer, access to job search. And no one taught you on the inside, because again, corrections' job is to keep the community safe and keep people locked up. And in California, they actually do a pretty good job. When you think about it, their job description, they do well. But the problem is 80% of those who get out or getting out go back in. And I don't think people realize 95% of the inmates get out of prison within 3 to 5 years. So it's a mess.
It seems, without being politically correct, it seems that this is a very ignorant and primitive approach.
Well, I got to tell you, I don't even think it's an approach. I think it's a happenstance. I don't think anyone sits there and says, I think these folks should come back to prison. I think it's just an outcome of what happens with the way the system has just been overburdened and growing so quickly. And of course, when the 3 strikes law came in, all of a sudden now an individual who gets violated, for example, a fellow gets out of prison, he's done his 5 years, he's hanging out with one of his homies, he goes into 7-Eleven, cops pull up, law enforcement pulls up, sees somebody who looks suspect, asks them for their ID, turns out that individual's on parole, and then it turns out that the person that's with them just got out of prison. That's a violation of their parole. What's been done is that person will go back to prison for a minimum of 90 days. That's going to stop now. What's going to happen is, if they're violated, they're going to go into the county jail. So now this huge burden is going to be coming on the sheriff's department, and then the probation department is going to have a huge monitoring load that they never had before. Average stay in our county jail is no more than 9 months, average. Now it could go up to 3 years because the county jails are going to become the local prisons, if you will, because this Supreme Court ruling that said that you cannot keep the overcrowding going has now mandated that the state reduce the overcrowding. So if you violate, you're going to go, unless you really extremely hurt somebody or take a person's life, you're not going to go back to prison. You're going to go back to local jail. So that's going to put a huge taxation on our current county. You know, and our district attorney, Bonnie Dumanis, you know, and her team with SB 618 and the reentry court, we're all working together very hard to figure out ways to try to solve the problem. But, you know, there's 11,000 returnees, state parolees right now in San Diego, right now, in this environment. And that's probably going to increase to about 12 or 13,000 just in San Diego. And we, at Second Chance, we only really can graduate right now with our funding base about 500 people a year. So it's not like we're putting a big dent in the issue, and we'd like to do more if we can.
So you need the public support in terms of making that happen. Now, when I said there's a very primitive and ignorant approach, what I mean in terms of locking people up and not really having a program or an approach
Correct.
to take care of that, it's not working.
Right.
The system that is in place is not working for the American people. However, it is benefiting the concrete industry, it's benefiting arms manufacturers. They're moving manufacturing into the prison system. Those are the people that are benefiting. And so thus our politicians are being paid off by the corporatocracy, that I call it, that is continuing to push the idea of prison. We have the very illogical drug policies. You know, they categorize drugs by tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, schedule 1, schedule 2, schedule 3, etc., which is totally illogical. And the mandatory sentencing guidelines, which most American people may not be aware of, that judges' hands are tied in some cases, right, in terms of how much time they give people. And so what I read in this report also is that the United States has the longest periods of incarceration than any other country.
Well, because I think as a society, and societally, we believe that by locking somebody up, that we're going to teach them a lesson. And I think what we've learned is that you can't put enough resources on the inside to really empower people when you're putting people in an environment where their job is to stay alive every single day because of gang factions, because of the fact that they might be a minority for a variety of reasons, or they may have preferences towards this or towards that, or look different or act different, or not know how to, you know, commingle effectively, so they're going to be put at risk. But I also believe that what's happening in our country is we've looked to the government to solve our problems in a lot of different ways. And that's not a political statement. It's just that we're looking to depend on people who, in my opinion, clearly have shown that they don't have the leadership skills to help us get from this point to that point. You know, what we used to do may not work today, so we've got to find ways. And, you know, what's supposed to be done may not be the best thing to be done if you take a look at what needs to be done with the current landscape. And when you look at the issue with incarceration across the country, average recidivism rate's about 50%. So California is just a leader in that. And when you get out of California, there seems like there's a lot more proactive things that are happening in the community. But right now, for example, a prison reentry court in San Diego just got funding for that through an organization. And that's where an individual comes in, kind of like a drug court that's been very effective. As a matter of fact, the drug courts of the country have become the most innovative court mechanism that's ever been put together, they say, since federal court was actually put together. It gives an individual a chance to sit before the judge, sit before the prosecutor, have a public defender, and have a caseworker, if you will, who's going to help manage their life plan. So instead of putting them away, we give them a plan. And that plan is you do this, this, or that, or you're going to get violated. So it gives them, technically, if you will, one more second chance. And the problem is, if you poll people, 9 out of 10 will say, why are we giving that person so much flexibility? And my attitude is, if we don't give them that second chance, what are we doing? We're just sending a message. You know what? Keep doing what you've always done. You're going to get what you've always gotten. And as your younger siblings or children see you do that, they're going to emulate it as well. And we're building this generation of individuals who really just don't care. And from that aspect of what our society does with our judicial system.
So I want to talk basically about what motivates you to be so passionate about this. And I want to talk a little bit about what you're doing right now and what you need from the public in the future. We have less than 15 minutes left, okay. So I want to get to that. What makes you so passionate? What drove you to start Second Chance?
Well, you know, and thank you for that question, because it's important to me, and I think it's important to people. I was a volunteer at a shelter And I saw people coming in every single week that were hungry and weren't working. And I asked the question, I knew why they were hungry, because they weren't working, but why aren't you working? And they'd say, no one will hire me. Look at me. You know, I'm an ex-con, I'm new in recovery. And I said, well, those sounds like excuses and barriers to me. I said, what if I helped you? What are you going to do for me? And they'd come at me with an attitude. I said, well, I'll show you how to go get a job, but you're going to have to make some changes. Well, why should I have to change? Why can't somebody hire me for who I am? I said, take a walk with me. We'd go to the men's room. Look in the mirror. What do you see? I said, that stuff on your face, I mean, that's out of control. I mean, who does your hair? You know, someone's bumper on their car dragging you. Come on. I said, and look at your clothes. I said, would you hire you? And their answer always would be, well, I guess I wouldn't. So let's work. I said, how about shaving, cutting your hair? Well, I don't have money for that. I said, no, I'll send you up to a barber school. I'll send you over to a place. All you need is $1 to buy a shirt at this thrift store, and we'll get you, you know. The guy would get mad at me, he'd walk away. Eventually he'd come back, we'd talk about it, and I got him a job. But I didn't know until he came back 2 months later and says, remember me? I'm Johnny. I said, how you doing, man? He said, they hired me. I said, who? He told me the story. I said, how'd that happen? Everything you told me was true. He says, what can I do for you? I said, help me with these men this afternoon. And he'd teach the others. And it started, kind of grew from that. It got really busy. One day I went out to all the nonprofits I could find in town and said, look, I'd like to partner with you. You need an address to get a job. And you have to have a job to keep an address. 2 basic skills and that everyone has to find ways to acquire. And 2 basic things and needs everyone needs to have. A place to live, and a place to eat, and a place to work, so you can do both of those 2 things. So I made the presentation. They said, look, we like your enthusiasm, we like your idea, but we can't work with you. And I said, why? And this is where my passion, really, the fire got started. They said, well, if you get our clients jobs, what will we do? I said, wait a minute, aren't you in the business of helping people get back on their feet? Well, yeah, but if they get jobs and they get sustainable employment, and they get affordable housing, all the things we do they won't need. I said, but isn't that a victory for you? They said, no, that's not what we do. So the next day I went to the library, opened up a book on how to start a nonprofit, and that's how Second Chance got created.
Well, that's a wonderful story.
Thank you.
And we're running out of time rapidly. We're down to 10 minutes. So can you tell me now, let's fast forward a little bit.
Okay.
Now, you got the book on how to run a nonprofit, and we're going to have you back again. This is obviously not going to work in 30 minutes. So we're going to have another part 2 to this interview.
Happy to do it.
Where are you at now? What does Second Chance do now?
Well, what Second Chance continues to do is we've recently, in the last couple of years, we've added a juvenile program. We work with at-risk youth, which are actually the children of the clients we've been serving. We go into juvenile hall, we go into East Mesa, maximum security lockup for youth at risk program that we call YOU, the youth offender units. They have them in both those facilities. And we start working with the kids 9 months on the inside and 6 months on the outside. So now we're building that bridge, that seamless bridge that we've always known needs to be there. We work very closely with the Sheriff's Department, work very closely with probation. They're our partners, we're their partners, and we're working together. So it's very exciting on a county level to do that. We've also just created an urban farm. We're using at-risk youth to work in this little piece of ground we have on our office in Canto, and we're growing vegetables, organic, and we hope to sell them to the local merchants and go into the local farmers market. We also have housing throughout the community. We're trying to expand as well. We have 160 beds throughout San Diego. We've added financial literacy. We have a full-blown mental health support system. So the 3-prong approach is really starting to expand, plus the 2-year follow-up. Now working with these young people, this is actually a long-term incarceration alternative, simply because if we can work with these kids for 15 months, and we're looking to extend that to maybe 21 months or maybe 2 years, we can really give them the tools they need, access back into education, support, mentoring, big brothering, big sistering, if you will, and opportunities to realize that there are alternatives. You know, that slinging dope and, you know, all the big growing industries around human trafficking, you know, which is a huge industry right now and growing very quickly in everyone's community, that we show them there's alternatives and we try to help them along the way.
What are the 3 prongs again now? You said a 3-prong.
Housing.
Housing,
And it's the workforce piece and then the long-term support. And the long-term support, the wraparound piece, is 2-year follow-up. We have the mental health component, and then we add different programmatic pieces. For example, we're also working with veterans who are having difficulty getting back into the workforce. So same concept, it's 4 weeks of training, and then for somebody who's had a gap in their employment, that 4-week training becomes the biggest ammunition on their resume. They've just finished a 4-week class, 160 hours of training. Most employers like that, and we have a great reputation now because we become an extension of the human resource department of the average employer because they know that we're going to be there for 2 years. So you think about it. Some family members will even get you their new cell number. Employers know we're there for 2 years with this candidate. So we have a lot of great employers, take a lot of our graduates, and we keep building those relationships.
So they've got a mental health component, they have a housing component, and so I'm assuming that some employers are saying, well, wow, okay, the quality of the people coming out of your program is good, and we should give them
the number one thing employer asks us for, and most employers do, and if you've ever been in business and you look around the studio here, you want somebody with a good attitude. You give me somebody with a good attitude, I'll give them a try, I'll train them in my ways of doing things. So that's what we do. We produce individuals, if you will, that have a great attitude, no matter where they've been and what they've done. Because after 4 weeks, if you're still in the classroom, and a lot of people don't make it. We terminate people, they self-terminate, but what we do that's kind of unique is we invite everybody back. So when they go back to their mama, and we say, take your drama back to your mama, going, they kicked me out of class. Say, we know what they do at Second Chance. They invited you back. Get your butt back there and start again. And we welcome them back. That way there's no excuse. And when they graduate, they're successful. And then we are. And we work it that way.
Excellent, excellent. And what do you need the public to do? What do you need to happen in the future to realize further success? Obviously, with more than 11,000 people that should be in your program in the county, in the area.
And we'd like to expand, right now you look at the 12, 13, 14% unemployment rate. That's 300,000 people in our community. We wish we could figure out a way to try to help those as well. But right now our special area of interest is working with the at-risk youth and trying to find ways to support them. But one of the things the community can help us with is it'd be nice if we could find a way to cultivate new employers. Obviously we need investors. People can come in and write a check and help us put individuals through the program. We're looking to expand our housing program. We want to create a training institute at some point, and we want to expand throughout the state. So we have a big, bold vision. We have a big, bold dream, but we're strategically planning now. We're working internally. We're looking at best practices across the state, the country, and we're trying to get our internal team ready to go because I think it's going to bust loose here very soon. The state's going to call at some point and go, we need your help tomorrow. So wait, we've been talking to you for 8 years. Well, we need it tomorrow, and we're going to need time to ramp up. But we think the model we have is replicable. Can be taken to other parts of this community, throughout the state, and we get a training institute set up, and we're working on a grant right now to take all of our collateral materials and put them in a format, in a social media format, a webinar format, electronically, so people can take and learn very quickly through the internet, and then have our staff, if you will, go with them to kind of help facilitate the implementation process, and then they can advance their skill training through, the technology that exists today for education.
Well, that's just an excellent program. I really hope that I get to see some of your graduates and people active in your program come to this show and begin to volunteer, and also on our other television shows that we have in production, which we have 4 cable TV shows now.
I'm sure they'd love to do it, and we'll figure out a way.
Very happy to train them in terms of doing broadcasting and TV production.
That'd be great.
And perhaps get them into some relationships with some TV producers. We have a fantastic community here in San Diego in terms of television production. So that might be another gateway that we can cultivate additional relationships. And I'm real proud of you. I'm proud of what you're doing. I can see that you're very sincere. I like the story you told about the people that said, well, why would we want to help these people get jobs? I mean, that's ridiculous.
Well, it's, the whole concept, when I wrote my book, Tell Me No, I Dare You, and the title was changed because the book was rejected by so many different people. And they say, you write a book, you're going to get rejected. And in life, we get rejected.
Talk about that.
Well, the book itself, is Tell Me No, I Dare You. It's about my journey, if you will, and it's also about the journey of the folks that I serve. 40% of our graduates, 40% of staff are graduates of our program. So when you walk into our office, and we have people coming from all different facilities around the state, and they come in and go, oh, well, you don't know the problems I've seen. You don't know the issues I have. You don't know the barriers. I said, well, we have somebody here on staff that I'm sure could share a story. Probably somebody on staff that maybe shared a cell with you at some point. So we bring that integral part of our life experience with our colleagues right to the front desk. When you walk in our front office, our candidate who works in the front is called the Director of First Impressions, sometimes referred to as a receptionist. We gave them that name because they are the first person someone sees when they walk in our front door. And we want someone that walks in our front door to know that they're not walking into a probation officer, their office. They're not walking into a parole office. They're walking into a second chance. And what that means to us is whatever happened before, you can leave that at the curb. Because when you get here, there are no more excuses or barriers. We're going to work together, if you're willing, and you're clean and sober, and you want to, we will help you. But if you're not ready, come back next month. As the business person says, don't let the door hit you in the butt on the way out. But if you're willing and ready, we will try to help you.
Well, that's just outstanding. And can you mention your website, please?
Sure. The website is secondchanceprogram.org, secondchanceprogram.org, spelled out like it sounds. And you can contact us through the website itself. Our phone number's there, and you can look at all the programs, the timing for the next class. Actually, our next graduation is going to be July 22nd. We have one every single month. New class just started today, which is part of the reason I'm probably a little pumped up, because it's my favorite day of the month. A whole new group is in today, and they're all ready to go. They think. Some aren't sure yet. Some got a nudge from the judge. Some are pushed by mama. And we're very excited about watching people transform in 4 weeks, and love to have you come out one day, maybe see a graduation, and your audience as well. If we can ever do that live, it'd be great, or at least tape it and show people in the community. You know, and on our website, there's some videos as well, and they can take a look at, you know, a little sample, a little vignette, if you will, of what takes place in the 4-week training.
Outstanding. And so we're going to have a part 2 to this interview sometime in the very near future. Obviously, 28 minutes is not enough to cover all the great things that's happening over at Second Chance. Thank you very much for Scott for joining us.
Thank you, Walter.
And if you want additional information, then go to the Community Coalition website that's going to appear at the end of the broadcast, and also the telephone number that's going to appear there. I want to encourage you to stay on watching for Lee Smith Cooper's show that comes on at 6 p.m. every Sunday. Community Issues, a Tapestry of Concerns, and Laura Thompson's show, which comes on at 9:30 on Thursdays, Community Artists Connection. And we also have another show in production, Consider the Possibilities, with Coach Marilyn. And so we are expanding our presence here on cable television, as well as internet radio and television. We want you to come in and to volunteer to become part of our crew. We are a citizen-driven media machine. And we want to tell good stories. We want to focus once again on human rights, social justice, and the environment here at the Community Coalition and on my show, Progress in San Diego. I want to thank you very much for joining us this evening, and please come back again and tell your friends about our shows, and to join us every Sunday at 5 p.m., same place, same time. Thank you.
Could love drive you to fly? Could hope be the only way? And would it be a crazy question? Would you take it all and throw it all away? Take me down to the final decision, and the world will break apart today. Take me down to the final decision, and the world will break apart today. And the world will break apart today. Could freedom be between the lines? Enjoy a life foundation springing up to find that every thought will lead to nothing, no matter how hard you try to define. Take me down to the final decision, and the world will break apart today. Take me down to the final decision, and the world will break apart today. I open my arms to the end of time. I got one hand on a mummy and the other on a green tree, orange-eyed gecko. I got one foot on a street in the village and the other in a mine under Colorado sunshine. Under Colorado sunshine. Could you stand in the way of progress? Could you laugh it off and say, I'd let it all fall down and let the rhymes come. I'd waste away and let the roots grow around some. Take me down to the final decision, and the world will break apart today. Take me down to the final decision, and the world will break apart today. And the world will break apart today.